Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. I am DDO's community manager, Cordovan, and hey, I've got a crew of folks with me here. As you can see, that way. How does that work? Yes, arrows point this way. Over on that side of the screen, we've got some fine folks from the DDO team who are here with us because we have a lot to talk about this week. We have got a big preview happening on Lamannia, showing off the epic Destiny work that we've been long talking about. And so that's available on Lamannia right now, along with, say, a new look at the Half-Elf and even some changes coming in Saltmarsh and all that sort of thing. But since Epic Destinies is such a big part of the game and such a big part of, everyone's interest here, we wanted to bring on the team to kind of go through a little bit about what we have going on, open it up to your questions, and then when we don't have, say, a forum post to go through or whatever, we also are actually going to be on Lamannia here a little bit today. First off, we should mention we have a preview tonight, huh? Oh, actually, first off, let me introduce everyone so that people can kind of associate names with voices and images. Let me start with Kokomajobo. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I'm Kokomajobo, the associate producer, and I'm good.
All right, awesome. And also with us here is Linabelle. How you doing, Linabelle?
Hey, I'm doing good. Nice to be here.
All right, Steel Star.
Hey, everybody.
And then also here, Torque.
Hey, guys.
You win the You're Working in the Darkest Room award, I think.
It's my cave.
Yeah. All right, so first off, why don't we mention that we actually have a developer event tonight. So a good opportunity if you're seeing this after the fact or you're seeing this live and you want to follow up with some direct conversation with some of the people who are talking here over this next hour. That's tonight from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
To collect feedback and answer questions that I can, and also gather a bunch of notes to send out to the rest of the team. So other people might join me, but I it's primarily I go there, grab notes for everyone, and send it out to the team.
All right, so now I happen to know because I saw this process happen that we have a lot. We probably have more text associated with this than I have seen in a very long time being sent to the Lamannia forums. And the reason for that is that we have a lot of work happening to 7 of the 12 Epic Destiny trees for this preview. Eventually we're doing everything, right? But for this preview here, which we will also put into perspective in a second, we have 7 of the 12 Epic Destinies available for preview. Kokomajobo, maybe you can start it off a little bit by explaining where does this fit in our preview cycle, right? Because this is Update 51, and Update 50 is not even out yet.
Absolutely. So we haven't started previewing for Update 50. That is going to come very shortly. We're looking at potentially having our first Update 50 preview next week, which will have some content from the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, the upcoming mini expansion. But for now, we decided to preview where we were at in redesigning the Epic Destiny system before we get to that. And even though the Epic Destiny revamp isn't going to happen, go to live until this fall, probably, we're a few months out at least, because the Epic Destiny revamp is such a big and expansive systems change, and has such a big impact on players that we wanted to start getting the framework of it out there and get people to have an idea of what we're looking at, and so we can get iteration and feedback early in the process. It is worth mentioning that because Update 50 is coming out soon, after this preview, we're probably going to go a bit quiet on the Epic Destiny front until Update 50 is out. And we're going to be looking through these threads and getting feedback and percolating ideas and building stuff in the background. But you're not going to really see another preview for this until Update 50 is out, probably.
Sounds good. I had a request to maybe make you a little bit larger on screen. Sorry about that. So I'm going to do that. Easier to see who's talking, I guess. So there we are. All right. So where do we want to start with the Epic Destiny work? Let's start maybe with the core framework here, huh? And that really kind of goes into detail about just sort of how the system as a whole is being redesigned. Now, there's a lot to talk about here, but in general, do one of you want to try tackling a bit of a what we're doing and why?
I could do that. All right, so Epic Destinies have been in the game for a very long time, and our players right now have spent a lot of time playing around with them. And there's just a lot of major and minor parts to them that all kind of interlocked into one cohesive system, and we realized the system isn't really serving our needs of modern DDO. And so in order to change them, we had to kind of put together a whole new framework to which to hold the Epic Destinies and a new way that players will interact with Epic levels. The biggest change is that the Destinies themselves are being entirely remade. Some of them are going to look very similar to how they were. Some of them are going to be completely remade with all new abilities. We're going to move stuff around between trees and stuff like that. But you're going to see new abilities and new Epic Destinies and use those new Epic Destinies as you level up through Epics. The other big change is we've removed a whole bunch of the requirements of entering into Epics and leaving Epics through reincarnation. So you no longer have to level up your Epic Destinies. You no longer have to switch to your active Epic Destiny in order to gain Karma to reincarnate. You simply place the points as you level up into the trees that you'd want. If you'd like to switch to trees that you have, you can respec those points out like just through the window, that's fine. And the last big portion of this is that rather than having twists of fate, we are letting you pick up to 3 Epic Destinies, and you spread your points between those 3 Epic Destinies, and you can swap which ones those are at any time, and you just put your points between those 3 things, and you have abilities from all 3 trees. And these are just chock full of new cool stuff.
There's really long-term been 2 parts to the Epic Destiny tree, which is the first-time experience, right? Hey, I'm a newer player going into level 20, leveling up to 30, kind of putting in that Epic Destiny XP and all that, which is going away, right? And then there's another side, which is longer-term players who are Epic reincarnating and have done it quite a few times, have a very different experience in terms of like that front-loaded amount, what you can spend and all that sort of thing. And so we're fundamentally changing some of the core of this. But that said, there is still a benefit for those who do the Epic reincarnation. So can we explain maybe for those who are pretty engaged here, who are like, all right, so I've done a lot of Epic Destinies over the years. What's up? What do I need to know under the new system here?
Sure.
Okay.
So, for those of you that have done a lot of reincarnating already in the Epic Sphere, you all along your Epic past lives have been granting you fate points, which in the current system help you unlock Twists of Fate slots and upgrade Twists of Fate slots. Fate points are still around in the new system. But now they are small sort of bits that add up to getting a point to be spent in the Destiny trees themselves. So the more past lives you have, the more extra points you have to spend right at level 20 on Destiny abilities.
Speaking of having points to spend right away in Destiny abilities, we're also introducing, as I understand it, a bit of an onboarding system which will give you some of those initial points that you'll be spending.
Yes, like we're trying to really have our cake and eat it too with this, and that the current Destiny system is very front-loaded, and ideally we would have a system that then instead rewards players as they advance the system. So we're kind of trying to split the difference here, in which a portion of your points are rewarded right at level 20 to give you a burst of considerable power and allow you to enter into the system with an amount of customization that would be relatively comparable. And then as you expand and level up onwards, you gain more and more abilities and more power as you gain other things. We've also rearranged like the levels at which you gain Epic Destiny feats by lowering their levels considerably. So you're going to be getting some of your power far earlier and some of your power at comparable levels. And our hope is that these permanent Destiny points that you get from Fate points and from the Tome from Feywild and from your Epic Past Lives giving you Fate points to give you these points, that you're going to be able to enter into level 20 content and feel that it is appropriately scaled.
So I'd like to enter a question from chat, which is, what's the difference between points and permanent points? Think of them like your universal enhancement point in your heroic trees, or your racial enhancement points, in that they persist through reincarnation, and they're not attached to leveling. So if you get permanent destiny points, they will remain with you forever, and you can spend them as soon as you can unlock your trees again, or when you can get back to 20. They're not locked to any specific trees. It's just those points will stay with you. Also, I'd like to point out that as soon as you hit 20 and you get your basic starting points from unlocking the trees, which is a one-time onboarding process, that's not a ton of points, but so it doesn't get you high in the trees, and also we've level gated where you can get in the trees. But we have put strong abilities, both in mantles and actives in the core in the tiers 1 and 2 of every tree, that are essentially mutually exclusive from each other. They're really strong and build defining, but we gate their power by you can only have essentially one of the mantles, and the cooldowns on the big active attacks are shared. So like you get a cool, big, powerful ability that doesn't overpower you by if you at higher point values, because you can't splash into them and get multiple of them. So hopefully at level 20 you should still feel cool and feel like there's a big bump into epics.
Related to that bump as well, this came up kind of over the past 24 hours because to date, we have had to do monster statting and things under the older Epic Destiny system. We do expect some of that to be adjusted as we're transitioning into this newer system here for Update 51, right?
Yes. I'm sure Torque could answer this more conclusively, but when we first went into the Epic difficulty, we did not have concepts like Epic Normal, Epic Hard, Epic Elite, and therefore our monsters were built with different scaling tech that does not generally reflect how our difficulty scalars work now. So monsters are erroneously benefiting from a higher base monster, and then are getting difficulty scaling on top of that. And our intention is to go through them and correct some of their stats to match our new scaling formulas, with the hopes that at level 20, you're going to be fighting content that feels a little bit more comparable for the level of difficulty that would be appropriate for level 20 or level 21 characters.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Jerry, you
Jerry,
lost
We're
voice.
not hearing
muted.
you, Jerry.
Oh my gosh. I'm the worst. I'm just the worst. Why? Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Let me repeat this. Sorry about that.
You
All
hear
right.
him now?
Yes. I was muted briefly and then unmuted because I used the wrong button. I pushed a button to mute me, and then I didn't unmute me. Anyway, sorry about that, folks. So, I was just kind of taking us into the next section of our discussion. So, we know that as a first-time player, you don't have to worry about what Epic Destiny you're starting off in. You don't have to worry about getting to the Epic Destiny you want. You'll have a bunch of points kind of at the front that you can spend to get yourself into the trees. You're rewarded through your epic reincarnations with additional points to spend initially. I'm just kind of recapping some of this as we then head into how we're spending our points, acquiring XP and such, heading through the level 20 to 30 experience. So as we're going up from level 20 to 30, we're making some changes, not just in sort of what you can do at what point, but we're also adjusting feats and things as well. So can we talk a little bit about how the Epic Destiny experience will be changing across the path from 20 to 30?
Yes. So we're a lot of the biggest thing here is that Destiny feats no longer have sphere requirements. There are no more spheres. There's no more adjacency. There's no more leveling up your Epic Destiny. So when you get to a point in which you get a Destiny feat, you simply pick the feat that you want. And which is going to be huge, especially for newer players or players who are trying to build alts. You no longer need to go through all of your Epic Destinies and earn 25 million experience in order to simply choose the feat that you want. We're trying to make it so that we put a chart up in the post, but as you can see, there are several levels in the current Epic game in which you level up and receive no meaningful step in advancement because your Epic Destinies are on a separate track, and you don't actually get anything, a feat choice or something meaningful at that level up, which is part of why the Epic gameplay can feel a little weird to some people, in which you level up, but you don't get more meaningfully powerful, which is always a weird feeling in any online game or any MMO. So to help with this, we're bringing the minimum levels of the Destiny feats down considerably. It's now a rule. You get an Epic feat, then you get a Destiny feat, and then you get an unlock that unlocks a new tier or the new cores of your trees, and you go back to the Epic feat, and the Destiny feat, and then trees. In this new system, there's only one level that's blank right now, and that's level 29. And so every other level is going to have some sort of intensely important, meaningful advancement, so that as you level up, you're going to level up at the Fate Spinner like you did before, and now it is much more of a huge milestone. Another thing that we're changing with this is that we are splitting up the Epic Destiny levels into ranks. This is not going to change how much XP that you need. This just means that you start earning things earlier on in your level. You start earning those points as you level up rather than in specific bursts when you hit certain milestones.
Right.
Just like in Heroics. So this means that you start earning points far earlier than if you had to wait until you hit level 21.
And a lot more frequently than the old system, too, because you're getting
Correct.
points at even level intervals as opposed
Right.
to whenever a Destiny kind of got it and then never again.
Yeah, it's like Heroics. It's
Yeah.
like you're going to get an action
If,
point.
if you played
on the third
Heroics,
level.
if you played Heroics, which you should if you are level 20
Yeah, if you're in
higher,
Epics,
you
I'm
should
gonna
feel very
assume-
familiar.
There's a lot more incremental advancement than the old system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so now let's tackle the one that last time around caused a little bit of player unhappiness here. What are we doing in terms of level? It's been described as level gating, level restrictions, unlocking at certain levels, things like that. What's changing?
If Steve, you can.
Oh, sure. So, unlike before, Destiny points are gained as you level. In the previous system, you would earn ranks in a Destiny that were completely independent of your leveling, and then keep those points forever. And we're shifting to a system where, like Heroic, you gain the majority of your points as you level, which is a big difference. But in this shift, we've also done things like made sure that you have some points up front, so you're not just starting every time at 0 points as soon as you hit 20. Between Fate Point unlocks and permanent Destiny points you may have gained, you'll have stuff to spend right at 20, and the first 2 tiers of any given tree are available at 20.
Yes. We made specific care to make it so that there's a large chunk of customization across your 3 trees. And again, you don't have to unlock or earn these. You just have them. You go through our short tutorial once per character ever, and then you just have these trees. And the idea is that, you're starting with a certain number of points, that you would feel relatively comparable as far as your power is, and then be able to build upon that power in a way that makes sense.
So essentially, what is changing to some extent, though, is we are restricting, let's say, like a tier 5 ability, which previously could have been acquired prior to level 30. Now will require a higher level in order to be able to invest in and therefore be able to use on your character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tier 5, exactly when you're able to get those abilities may change. We're going to talk about player feedback and things like that. But yes, some abilities are going to be level gated where they were not before.
And I think part of the idea of this is that the leveling experience in Heroic is a rewarding flow where as you level, you unlock new cool things to use, and it's a progression. And we want to build that flow into Epics where it currently wasn't there. And it's like you hit 20, you have all of your Epic Destiny tools, and you do that grind one time to get all of them unlocked, and it is a grind. And then forevermore, hit 20 again, and you just have all these things, and then it's a blur from 20 to 30 because it's all the same. We want you to have incremental, as you're going through it in Epic Life, to get incremental cool abilities and new stuff to make it feel like a progression and feel good to do it. And in order to make that flow, we got rid of the one-time big whole Epic Destiny grind for new players to be onboarded into the system at easier.
Right, and that grind was by many accounts a very big barrier to entry for people into Epics. You'd start at 20. You'd you'd have a very limited scope of what you were able to start with, depending on your class levels and the sphere you were in. You'd need to struggle your way up through that Destiny and then move on to an adjacent Destiny that may or may not have been something that's relevant to your build either. So it was just a very frustrating onboarding experience for newer players that is no longer an issue.
All right. maybe we should take a few questions from chat here related to this, and then I thought what we might do is move on to, we're not going to go through all 7 of the Epic Destiny trees here kind of point by point. There's just too much text for a video presentation like this. You can read it. But I thought we would pick one and just kind of use it as an example. Anyone got a preferred one to pick maybe?
I think Fury is awesome. I think we should
Fury?
go for Fury.
All right, sounds good. We'll pick Fury of the Wild here and pop that one up and kind of go through what we're talking about here in terms of how things might look and play a little bit different. So, call that up. And then while we're doing that, I'm actually going to pop onto Lamannia as well and build up a little character that I can show off the UI for here. So if I'm a little quiet, and looking like I'm doing something else, it's because I am. So, but I did want to talk a little bit about kind of what we're seeing for these destinies. So, when you had to decide, basically, okay, so we're going to be doing a bunch of Destiny work here and largely giving ourselves the option, is that right, to largely remake these trees from the ground up? Is that how radical we're talking here?
In some cases, yeah. I mean, there's certain things that we felt we could keep in the new design paradigm, and there are other things that didn't quite fit. And some of them are just getting moved around. They might appear in other trees. Some of them are might even get moved to other spells or heroic abilities. It's
and in the case of a tree that you haven't seen yet on Lamannia, Magister is no longer sticking around at all and is being replaced by an entirely different tree. So, in some cases, pretty large changes. I believe we did call it out in the thread. The name of it's Magus of the Eclipse.
Yes.
And it's going to be cool.
You get to cast spells a couple times a year? Is that what it is? No, I'm kidding.
only during eclipses.
A real life eclipse, yes.
Yes.
No. All right, and so let's look then at Fury of the Wild here a little bit. What was Fury of the Wild? What will be Fury of the Wild? And do you feel that basically if I'm a Fury of the Wild user now, it's going to be fairly seamless in terms of what I have to do, or am I going to have to relearn in my Epic Destiny tree here?
So Fury kept a lot of the major bones of what made it. It has adrenaline. Adrenaline still pretty much does what it did. The biggest change about adrenaline is it's just on the cooldown. It's no longer limited charges, which makes it a little bit more flexible. The cooldown I found it was fairly comparable. Like you could regenerate the charges, but there were some circumstances there, so it pretty much matches up. So you whacking things with adrenaline, I think, is going to fall pretty much where it was. There you got extra tools added to your toolkit that you didn't have before, and the tree has been expanded with multi-selectors to support rangers, dual wielding, and razor claw shifters and animal form. Some of the stuff that was in Primal Avatar actually got moved into this tree, so the tree is a bit more flexible. And there is even a little bit of healing sonic damage synergy for people to dip in, like a war chanter, like a bard, or might come into here and do well as well, or at least splash into here. We tried to actually make the trees in general. We tried to make the trees a lot more build flexible because they were kind of rigid. They were old. Like this is. This system shipped before we had the enhancement system, the heroic enhancement system that you're all used to now. Yeah. So, there are just a lot of things we could do at more better adapted to what everyone is playing through in the heroics that work really well in the level 1 through 20 curve that wasn't really happening as much in the epics that we could take advantage of. So we're trying to leverage into that.
Originally I remember when the Epic Destiny system came out, it really focused, on Arcane, Divine, Martial, and it was really kind of the holy trinity in terms of roles at the time, right? I don't know that it ever actually was the kind of holy trinity, so to speak, but it was more class restrictive. Are we going back to more of a, hey, this section is if you're into melee, this section is if you're into casting, or is it? Are we saying, hey, if you're an artificer, this is the tree for you?
So there are going to be trees that are heavily themed that obviously are going to be like this is a good tree for this class. But the fact that you can now freeform combine trees much more easily is going to let you build out hybrids more. And we are trying to massage the trees that even when, like, Fear of the Wild is pretty much the pure barbarian, or at least the two-hander tree. And now it is, now there's like, a bit more flex in there where the animal forms and it has a whole dual wielding path. And there's even like a little bit of magic in it. Not a lot, but a little. And that's like, there's going to be, that's kind of, I mean, things could potentially change, but it's kind of like atypical that the trees will support multiple class flows. Some of those might synergize tightly. Fury of the Wild is very much a weapon wielding tree, even though it now supports more styles than it did. But you're also going to have something like Shadow Dancer, which is a melee and a caster tree that's trying to split those differences. Not every tree, like we can't make every tree do something for everyone, but we could try to make it have a broad audience of, like, I can think of 6 builds that would like this tree. That's kind of like, it's kind of a loosely where we're looking at, is like, if I can think of like 5, 6 kind of character flows that would utilize this tree, we feel like we've done a good job there. That's kind of where we are at the moment.
So, I guess kind of heading into this work that we're doing here, historically, I guess you could say Fury of the Wild was if you had a sword and Sharati as if you were ranged, right? Is that still going to be the case under this new paradigm?
Not as much. Like, it's not like you're going to take Fury of the Wild as a sorcerer, but like now Fury of the Wild, Fury of the Wild is also animal form and also razor claw and weapons. If Fury of the Wild wasn't that great for dual wielding because adrenaline wouldn't hit on your offhand, it was much better for two-handed weapons. So it sort of expanded that. They're not every tree will expand uniformly. Some are going to be like much more caster hybrids, and some are going to like cover a variety of melee builds. We're a little light on range right now, where we're working on that. That's an acknowledged problem, is you don't have enough range tree support. It's
one kind of other important thing in there. Fury is very melee centric and doesn't really have much in the way of range support. And Sharati is the inverse, where it has a lot of ranged weapon support but not much melee weapon support. All of the other trees that handle weapons do both. So your Dreadnought has both melee and ranged options, and so on.
Okay. What else should we mention about this one? Or did we maybe want to pop up a caster tree of some kind, just to kind of help give a little bit of sense of what's going on there? Do we want to look? Do we have?
Do you want to go into particular new abilities?
We could probably talk about the mantles and the charges.
For Fury, you mean?
The charge system is a general system. It's an innovation right now. So it's the thing probably most one of the things most in flux and most likely to change. So the goals we had were, we wanted to create with the builders and spenders. There's a lot going on here. First of all, with the builders being exclusive, the old system, the trees are relatively exclusive for each other, where they had some exclusivity based on the cores and something being in a higher tier. You could twist some things, but other things were locked in. So we wanted to keep some of the really big toys. We had to maintain some concept of exclusivity, like adrenaline is on a shared cooldown with the other builders because it's adrenaline, for example. So that in this current paradigm, the builder, which is this basically first powerful ability in tier 1, we want you just to get right away when you hit level 20. Those are currently on shared cooldown, so you're only really going to be using one of them. There's some talk about making that a little more flexible, whereas like we've been kind of getting some feedback of maybe like it's only by the sphere, and we're kind of looking at that. But
maybe I can actually stop you and back up a second. So what we're really talking about here then is a system that is being not a new system per se being introduced, but kind of a mechanism being spread throughout, where on the low end you're building up charges of some kind, and then you can modify those charges, and then you can spend those charges. It's kind of an acquire, a modify, and then spend system that's being kind of baked into a bunch of these trees? Is that really what we're talking about here?
Yeah, the charge system as a whole, when we talk about Epic Destinies, is a system of shared like aesthetical play. Like it's a mechanical design that is pervasive throughout the Epic game, in which powerful abilities will either build or spend specific charges, and those powerful abilities that spend charges will get considerably stronger if you've done the work to build them up. So you can take, for example, I think the Great Leveler in this tree is a great example of a really powerful spending ability, although I don't actually think it spends the tokens, correct?
It does spend the tokens.
Yeah.
We're doing a bunch of different gambits with the
Yeah,
tokens.
there's a lot of this stuff. So basically, some of your abilities like Adrenaline or Quick Cutter and stuff are going to build up these primal charges on you. And then there are some abilities like the Great Leveler that say like, yeah, this is a really good ability, but if you've got all these tokens, it's an even better good ability. And so some of the functionality changes depending on what you have. There are also enhancement bonuses, like there are passive bonuses that say like, for example, in Dreadnought, you get +1 to all your tactical DCs for every martial charge that you have on you. So you're like, well, I could spend all of these in this really powerful ability, but what if I want to use some other tactics first? And so it becomes a sort of series of like it's an in-fight choice system in which you build up and spend this resource.
I think the important thing to note is that these charges are the one place that we've really kept the idea of spheres, in that it's not that you're getting Fury of the Wild charges from your from Adrenaline. It's you're getting primal charges, and so there are other trees that you can that have abilities that will allow you to modify what those do or to spend them with different abilities. Like you're not locked into I have to get everything Fury of the Wild in order for these to be good. You can bump around to like, oh, I'm going to splash into Primal Avatar and get their bonuses to primal charges. While I use the Fury of the Wild builder. So there's a lot of interesting combinations you can make with these.
Yes,
Yeah.
and spenders are also more than just attacks. Like the ones in Grandmaster of Flowers, there's one that turns you into a blaster in which you shoot projections with your hands like a warlock. There's a lot of CC abilities. Meld into Darkness is now far more accessible at just tier 2, but it scales its effectiveness based on the number of tokens consumed. So there's a lot of freedom in how we approach these abilities, and we like this system because it means that you have to put a lot more thought into like pressing an ability rather than just whenever it's off cooldown, because your abilities are drastically improved in your effectiveness if you participate in this type of active play. This is definitely a new thing. I know this is definitely a new kind of thing for DDO, and so we built this to be very mess aroundable on our part, like messing with the durations of tokens, how much effort, how much energy, like how much of an increase a spender would get, like maybe they need more baseline or maybe less. So this is a system you really have to try out. So we'd love it if you guys would go onto the previous servers and just swing your sword around a few times, build some charges and spend them, see what's going on, because it is very cool, and it plays very well.
Yeah, one thing to look out for is a lot of the spenders have an extra perk if you actually have 3 charges when you fire them. So,
Yes.
For the interest of just not showing a forum thread for too long, I actually popped onto Lamannia here, and you can see I'm in what's the formal name of this place? The thing of Junction of the World?
Junction of the Spheres.
Yeah, Junction of the Spheres. There we go. So this is this isn't Lamannia only, right? This is just kind of the space that you'll initially go into to kind of take a look at the Epic Destiny system and trees and stuff, right?
Correct. Rather than leveling up and dealing with all adjacency and stuff, you go here and you talk to people and you're done. And then you're done for this character forever.
What it essentially is an onboarding system and almost a tutorial for Epic Destinies, which the old system desperately needed. We're all used to it now because it's been around for so long, but this is what that should have had originally, which is a place to go to learn about the system, and then to learn about each of the trees individually. In this preview, the Fate Spinner will tell you about the system. There's some cleanup that needs to happen there. And then you can go to each of the individual rooms around you, and they all have trainers for each of the different trees. And the trainers will eventually tell you about their tree and let you know about it, and then they'll allow you to unlock it. Unlocking as simple as talking to them. They'll unlock it for you, and then you get 2 fate points, which will add up to get you permanent destiny points.
Right.
The point is, you go here and we make sure you learn about it once before you engage with the system, so that we know that you know what you're doing.
So should I pop through a divine sphere here and just kind of maybe show a tree, something like that? I'm trying to get a full slate of trees that we could show off or something like that to spend some points into. Okay, so now we're popped over to a groovy place with Archons. Also, can we get this on our airship as a background? I kind of want stars and stuff.
That'd be cool.
That would be
That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's just say, for example, I want to do Divine Crusader. Boom. Now I've unlocked it. Then I want to speak to this. Yo, hey, I got that one. 2.
And in this preview, we have not finalized any of the trainer text because we want them to like tell you about what the tree does and its abilities and stuff. And we know that those are going to heavily fluctuate in this until they're finished. So they're currently placeholder.
Right. It looks like I do have there's some kind of placement issues here, and I'm not seeing my trees really here. If you can see them,
you have all the trees. You just need to go to the drop downs and select the ones.
So remember, only Divine Crusader in this set, I think, is actually done.
Yeah, I think Divine Crusader is the only one we got as an option here, but yeah.
Yeah, it's also important that to remember, even if you don't want to use a tree, like say if you're a sorcerer and you're like, well, why would I unlock Divine Crusader? You get fate points from unlocking those trees. So even if you don't want to use it on that build, just talk to the NPC, get the tree, because those contribute to permanent destiny points. So right at the gate level 20, you get those extra points.
Yep. Just go talk to all 12 of them right out the gate.
This right off the bat here kind of shows a little bit about that charge system. The Divine Smite, a popular thing, right? You get Smite Evil and all that sort of thing. You will also get enhances Smite Evil attacks to grant you +5 temporary hit points when they hit an enemy, with an additional +5 for each divine charge that you have. So you'll be building up those divine charges to potentially cash that out on a Smite Evil, right? So
yes, although this does not consume the charges. This just means if you have a whole bunch of them, your smites just naturally give you a buffer.
Right. We're trying to support we have like a bunch of gambits that we're trying to support to see which ones work best, and one of the ones we're actually doing is like, rather than spend your charges, actually collect a bunch of buffs and hold on to your charges. So you'll see a variety of buffs on it's like for every charge I get some buff, and you could collect them throughout the various trees and hold on, maybe do that build instead of a spender build.
I love our new NPCs here too. That's nicely done. Sorry.
It's all very placeholder.
Is it? I kind of like it though.
It's
really.
like
I like it.
It's a work in progress, but we are mindful that it should. You've reached level 20, and new players do come along, and we want to make the experience kind of good presentation. So,
all right. So
the beginning of that,
and I could just swap it over once I've unlocked it. Is that just sort of how it works?
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
We just want you to have to talk to the person to understand what the tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way you can remember that unlocking a tree, you get the fate point, you get the point.
Yep.
That's
All right. I guess just to be complete, I'll go through some of the rest of this. But I did want to underscore one difference, which is that there is no such thing as Destiny XP. There's no such thing as you're just earning Epic XP, and that's it, right?
Yep. And when you get to 30, you can Epic Reincarnate and choose any Epic Past Life. That's not working in this early preview. That system is still... you can't actually Epic Reincarnate at all in this early preview. But when it goes live, all you have to do to Epic Reincarnate is level to 30, choose which of the Past Life feats you want, and then you go back to 20. Done.
All right. Okay, so how is this, because it gets a little mixed up on the feedback here, because this is also kind of looking ahead toward any future level cap work, right? That's something that has come up a couple of times now on the forum feedback threads and things like that. So I know that we're not really in a position to talk too much about what we might do in the future for the level cap increase, but what are some of the considerations of this that are related to that?
So you'll notice looking at these trees that they have fewer cores than heroic and handsome trees. This is in part because as we get past level 30, we intend to have additional cores in those trees that you can take at levels above 30. Leveling above 30, you also will have more points to spend in Destiny trees because you're gaining levels just like you have from 20 to 30. So there will quite possibly be things other than that in terms of advancement when we get to those levels. But for now, those are some of the things you could expect.
All right. let's take a little bit of time going through chat with questions here. We have not had time to do a lot of questions, but as we're kind of on the latter part of the show, let's see what we can get to here, huh? Yep. Sorry, did I interrupt someone?
I was just saying I've been answering some of them in text.
Oh, okay. Well, you want to answer some of the ones in text on voice? I don't know. What do we talk about here?
Sure. Someone asked whether the charges that you get, how they would display, and they're displayed. Currently, that's a thing that's really up in flux, and it might change by the time it goes live. But in this current build, basically they show up as little particle effect icons floating around your character, so you can know how many primal charges you have. And they are color coded, and also will have their own unique appearances. That's really a thing that is not final whatsoever. Another thing that was asked was whether you need to unlock trees, go to that place and unlock the trees every life. No, you unlock trees by talking to those NPCs once on your character, and then it persists through reincarnation, and you're good.
That's not working on this Lamannia, but it will.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So why don't we kind of refocus on a question that's a pretty big one. How will this change Epic past lives?
It will make them better. You actually get more fate points for your past lives, and now those fate points are worth permanent destiny points, which is arguably better. And you also don't need to run in specific destinies in order to earn them, which is 1,000 times better. So they are easier to earn, and do mathematically give you more fate points. Other than that, there are no changes. We are not changing anything other about the system.
The system should just be more accessible, frankly.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Does the permanent point, is it only based on reincarnation, or will there be some rewarded for previous destiny levels?
No, your previous destiny levels, if you have at least one character that has capped out all the levels, we're going to give you a nice commemorative cloak with a picture of the star map on the back. So you can have this cool thing to commemorate your achievement. And then that's it. There are no benefits to having previously engaged with this system beyond not having to engage with that previous system again.
Okay, let me ask a bit of this one. I think is a little harsh, but so no more Cocoon. What's up with that?
Cocoon is in there twice. Cocoon is in there twice. It's in Tier 1 of Primal Avatar.
There's tons of Cocoon. Just you dip it. You dip
as much Cocoon.
Two destiny points into Primal Avatar, and you get Cocoon. And there's more Cocoon than there was because there are other ways of getting Cocoon in that tree.
Great.
Yes.
There are going to be healing spells in Tier 1s and 2s of a couple of different trees, and just like you would have to spend a twist slot in the previous system to get your healing spell from an off destiny, you would have to choose one of your 3 trees has to be one of the ones that has one of the easy, low-hanging fruit healing abilities, like Cocoon.
Yeah, we want to make an alternate Cocoon and Exalted Angel, for example. We're
going to be trying to expand. Also.
Yeah. There's I don't think there's going to be a shortage of self healing.
Just can't be a shortage of anything. It's
there's.
All right.
Answer another quick question from chat. What about the tome from Feywild? Yes, you will still get your point. It is a permanent destiny point. It will appear right when you get level 20. That's +1 point to use in your destinies.
That doesn't work in this early preview, but it will by live.
Yes.
While we're talking, I am showing off the first look of the updated half-elf, and I'm showing that here. This is something that is not coming for 51. Is this 50? I'm not sure.
The actual timeline on this is TBD. It might be 50. It might be after. But I currently it looks like it'll be 50. We'll see.
Okay.
What about Tsunami? Tsunami is going to be an actual Druid spell, so it's actually going to be more accessible. It's just going right into Druid.
Yeah, we plan on doing a push to we feel that Druid needs a rounding out of more offensive spells. So that will happen.
Did we mention? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all the answers we've done. Did we mention or answer Grasskitch's question about how we'll know how many charges we have of, say, Primal?
I talked about that. Basically, that's the thing that's super up in the air right now. But as it's currently implemented, you get little icon particle effects around your character.
Okay.
Yeah, there's we weren't able to get it in for the first preview, but there's actually 3 different configurations for how those display. You could actually, if you have access to running admin commands, you might be able to show that to them on if you want to.
Okay. All right, let me head over to YouTube here. See what we got over on YouTube. Let's see. where will the dev event be held? That'll be held on Lamannia. It's a game client that you'll need to download on your own, and you can find it's downloadable for free, and you can find a link to it on the DDO forums. You'll download the Lamannia game client, log into it using your regular game credentials. You can theoretically transfer a character over, I think, right? But you can also just make one on your own. And then you'll want to head into really the marketplace, what's called the test dojo, and that'll take care of everything you could possibly want to do in terms of getting yourself XP and checking things out and what have you. So, all right, well, so we've kind of shown off the new male half-elf here, and let me back off and see if I can show the female version of it. While I'm finding a question. Let's see. I'm not sure. It's a fairly complicated question to answer. I'm not quite sure how to answer, but let me just pose it. What does carry over from current Epic Destinies? So I guess that would be a reiteration of sort of the cloak you'll get. But also, if you have a bunch of Epic past lives heading into the new system here, you'll have additional Destiny points to spend at level 20 as a result of that work.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
In addition to those individual feats.
Yes, the feats themselves are not changing. They'll give you exactly the same buff that they gave him before.
Yep.
Okay. I'm actually not seeing a lot of questions here. What else should we talk about then? We got other things we could talk about. We could talk about update. Well, go ahead in a second here, but I was just saying we could also move on a little bit to some of the update 50 stuff that happens to be on Lamannia right now and that as well. So
talk about Shatterkai and Radiant Servant.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. So what's up with Shatterkai and Radiant Servant?
Sure. So we wanted to kind of we had a little bit of time between things, and wanted to find a couple of things that we could fix quickly and significantly improve in a short amount of time. And the two things, I kind of put together a short list of things that we thought we could do meaningfully in the time that we had, and landed on two things: the Shatterkai Assassin Iconic and the Radiant Servant Enhancement Tree in Cleric. Looking at Shatterkai, they've really aren't up to par on live right now with a lot of other races and iconics. They don't get much in the way of inherent racial abilities, and their main kind of defining feature, the spike chain attack that's found in their tree currently, is just not very good. It was built in a different era of DDO and doesn't scale well, is really slow. It's just not worth using most of the time. And we really wanted to take this iconic and give it something that would kind of breathe new life into it and open up some interesting build possibilities. So what we did, a couple of things. We took the tier 1 spike chain attack that was in the tree, and we moved it to be an innate racial feat they get at level 1. So if you're playing a Shatterkai at all, you'll have a chain attack to play with. The chain attack now, more or less, like the easiest way to describe it, is it works like a cleave that hits 3 times, but requires a light weapon to do it. So the animation's fairly long, but it does scale with your attack speed, which it didn't used to. It does use your weapon stats, but you have to be using a light weapon to do it, and it swings the chain around 3 times, hitting everybody nearby.
Nice. We have that chain attack's been like the defining feature and curse of Shatterkai for a long time.
It's
sort of their main thing, but it also hasn't been good.
There's a question in chat that I haven't actually, I don't actually know the answer to. I don't know if you do, Steve. Does the enemy Shatterkai's chain attack ?
What
do they now do
about
the same thing as players?
No, they are unchanged. They still have the stand still while doing it, but you can move.
Different flow.
Yeah, and that is another new change. You can now move when using the chain, which you could not do before. Moving before broke the chain sequence entirely, but now you can chain on the go.
Nice.
Do you want to talk about Radiant Servant a little bit?
Yeah, that sounds great. Radiant Servant is one that's a bit near and dear to my heart. I'm a frequent Radiant Servant person, so I'm interested to hear what do we have going on here. And particularly, are things changing with like the auras, that kind of thing?
The aura itself hasn't changed much. It's a pretty powerful ability on its own with some balance concerns, and it's something we might look into doing something a little different with in a pass where we have more time. But our main approach to this one started with Radiant Servant is currently the most expensive tree in the game, and that does not correspond to the amount of power that it gives. You have to spend more than 80 points, I believe, to buy absolutely everything in the tree, which is absolutely ridiculous compared to other trees. And what you get for it is good, but not 88 points worth of good. So the first thing we did is went through most of the tree and consolidated some enhancements that were, say, something and then an upgrade to that thing down into one. Reduced things that cost 2 AP to 1 AP in most cases. And added a few new tools and tricks into some of the spaces that the tree had left.
Okay. I'm not seeing. I would have to call up these pages here, and I don't know if I really want to bring up all the forum pages at this point. We're actually almost at 1 o'clock, so I probably won't take too long, but I will go a few minutes over since we started a little bit late as well.
Yeah.
I did want to call out real quick before we are done. Let's take a quick look at some of the update 50 stuff also that is in the notes here, see if there's really kind of anything that we wanted to mention.
I have some big stuff from that. There are a few really impactful bug fixes. One is there are specific types of weapons like Celestia or the Flame Blades or the Shadow Blades or some of the raid items from Dread and the Demigod. These items do not have a mundane damage type like piercing or slashing. And as such, there is a long-standing bug in which if you were fighting an enemy with those weapons that had any type of DR, your damage was erroneously reduced as if you had hit that DR blocker. This bug has been fixed. So now if you're using Celestia, it doesn't matter what happens to the weapon now. You can actually just use it against enemies with DR. It will bypass all DR unless the DR actually matches what the type of the weapon is. So your Flame Blade will bypass all non-fire DR, and they get correctly reduced by fire DR because it's fire damage, and if something is immune to fire, your Flame Blade's not going to do any damage to it. But this will drastically increase the usability of those weapons and fix a long-standing bug with that. Also, the spell Trap the Soul has an actual component now, rather than a component that you had to make using the Stone of Change. We also deleted all of the guild augments from the game.
Yeah,
we fully deprecated the entire system. This let us remove
what's the cause? That's just really. I mean, that old guild system had been, it's quite old now. What, a decade plus? But it had kind of hung around as for those who already had those little buffs. So what's the deal there?
We deprecated that system a little bit after Motu. I think about 2013 when we did the augment system, the colored augment system that we just replaced a few updates ago. So items with guild augment slots more or less stopped dropping around then, but we kept the recipes around to let people who still had those items kind of benefit from them. But, as time's gone on, fewer and fewer people have used that system, especially as a lot of its bonuses are eclipsed by guild buffs these days. But players asked us at one point, to kind of look into the Stone of Change and things we could do to make that flow easier, and one of the biggest things standing in the way of that is that the Stone of Change had hundreds and hundreds, I think over 1,000 possibly, recipes on it. It's just a massive, massive thing. And so we started to look into, well, what are all of these recipes and what are they doing? And the vast majority of them, about 800 of the recipes, were just guild augment recipes. And as that system has been largely deprecated for close to a decade, we decided the time was right to just sunset that system, replace those slots with colorless slots in the new augment system, and get rid of all those recipes on the Stone of Change, which should hopefully reduce the load that the stone has on loading into instances that have the Stone of Change in it, on loading the Stone of Change itself. It should just be good news all around.
Before we wrap things up, Sivarus Spirit Cake can now be used while you're raging. That's nice. That's a long in the works one. Another kind of long in the works one here is related to, where am I seeing this now? I saw one that was like, oh wow, that's been a while.
The NPCs in Meridia that gave you the quests network.
Yeah.
Finally gone. They're out of there.
Which one? Which NPCs again?
So there are quests that were never fully implemented that involved collecting specific materials from dropped enemies in the Shroud.
Yep.
You cannot actually pick up those materials, and you cannot actually complete those quests. So we've finally removed those NPCs and de facto also those quests. So it no longer is a confusing just standalone thing.
Yeah.
There were NPCs who asked you to do a thing which you couldn't actually do.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was, if I recall, way back in the day, there was an intention to do something with that, and then it just never made it to live, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Uh,
Poison damage resistance actually now works. It will actually reduce the amount of poison damage that you take.
Nice. All right, I think
Yes.
we're going to wrap it up here, unless we have any final kind of questions that we want to get to from chat. It's been a packed hour, and that's been great. So if you have further questions for us, consider stopping by Lamannia tonight. That's 8 to 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You can download the Lamannia client for free through the DDO forums if you don't have it already. Come join us. Give us your feedback here on the new Epic Destiny system. Check it out yourself, and we'll be back next week. I'm not sure what we're doing next week. What are we doing a preview next week?
We are currently tentatively scheduled to do the first preview of Update 50, Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, next week. That build hasn't been pulled yet, so I don't know whether that's realistic, but we're currently looking at a next week preview for that. I'll let you know by end of week whether that's looking...
Yeah. And I probably will not, be showing a lot of Saltmarsh quests than that, right on the screen here, just for spoiler reasons.
Well,
but
we
there
could
we go.
potentially talk
Yeah.
Horizon Walker if it's on there, and it should be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us here for the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. We'll be back next week with more stuff. Thanks everyone on the team also for taking an hour out of your lunchtime to delve into these complex systems and what have you. So thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.